having by.
So I've been probably coming here because I used Kingsway White Spot
As the
for
original
years. Yeah, this was only if I met really fancy people.
one. Thank you. So we are here at White Spot, Bob, and it's been, I think, 50 years in industry for you.
50 years, December 15th.
December 15th.
Yeah.
And, look, it's kind of fun. You and I get to talk all the time. It's always over coffee. This is the original version of a podcast, I guess, where people actually sit, have a cup of coffee, and chat. But why are we at White Spot? It's got a long history for you.
I eat 3 meals a day, 365 days a year in restaurants.
I was going to say not at the house.
And breakfast is either at the Wedgwood downtown. I'm super OCD or White Spot. White Spot used to open at 6 o'clock, and I'd sit in the booth at the end if I was meeting anybody from City Hall, and it just works. It's comfortable. But going back in history, when I was selling single-family homes in the 70s, started in 75, nobody could show as many homes as I did. If you were looking for a home, I would show you 10 to 20 homes. I didn't care. Part of it is I got to meet 10 to 20 vendors. I got to meet 10 to 20 people showing their home, and they would see the attention I pay to the consumer. But then halfway after 5 homes or so, I'd take people to White Spot, either on Lougheed Highway or on Gilmore, or if it was East Vancouver, on Kingsway and Knight Road, and we'd have pie and coffee. And if we're ever sitting down to write an offer, we go to White Spot. I like to write offers at kitchen tables over coffee or at White Spot. It's a huge experience for the consumer to buy a home. In most cases, the biggest event of their financial life. So it should be really comfortable. And other brokers used to criticize me that I just throw money away buying pie and coffee for everybody. White Spot is, and part of our family too on weekends.
It's funny, you mentioned OCD, but the reality is I've gotten to learn from many people like yourself, and there's a lot of habits or routines that it seems very clear you've built up over the years. And I mean, I've been working with you since, mid-2000s. What are some of the things that have stuck over 50 years that are just absolutes from a routine, as you call it, OCD basis, that you think?
Well, if I walk in the house and a fork in the kitchen is moved, I can feel it. So that's the extremes of it. But we don't even notice the habits in the company. But somewhere in the 90s, as we started to have 5 to 15 developers we were working with, I instigated, I will see you every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. I will see you every Thursday at 2 o'clock. Lunches varied, but just as you were beginning to say, we got to talk to Rennie, you go, oh no, I'm going to see him on Tuesday. But we always knew we were going to be meeting, and my clients thought that they had a leash around my neck, but I actually had a leash around their neck, is that we had a set time, because there's no way you could have that many clients and not have it scheduled. It couldn't just, I came into project marketing seriously between 89 and 92, and I would just be at your whim. You wanted to see me, I would be there. But we had to get it organized if we were ever going to scale. We don't even know that was instigated back then. Because once we have a client, you say, okay, well, let's meet on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. And you don't even think of that was part of the governance of the company.
And 504, you wake up at 504, your license plate has 504. What am I?
License plates are 54. The whole family. Part of it is if I pull up to a Safeway and I see a car that someone in the family owns like it, I can look at the license plate and know it's somebody in the family. It's old school tracking. Nobody wants to own a house at 44 West 44th. The Royalton Hotel in New York is at 44 West 44th, and I've ended 2 relationships in it. I have no idea whether it's fact, but 4 means death in many Asian languages.
Yeah.
5 means no. So if you have a choice of 888, which is eternity, 8 Always close it when you draw it. I've had clients tell me, "Oh, that's too much pressure." But 5-4, our home phone number was always 5400. It gave me an opportunity to respect that I understood the superstitions of 4, but I found a way to deal with it, which is no die, 5-4. It's it
It's stuck.
it's stuck, and I try not to change things. My phone, if I call you, it's blocked. It's been blocked for
Private number.
40 years, and I should change it. Now I have a joke that the only way you'll take my call is because it's blocked, because you don't know it's me.
You know, you bring up Asian culture, and obviously someone who continually comes up as a theme in your life and early person who helped you build it is Miyako. What did she influence along the way that makes you who you are today? Because when I think about art, politics, and real estate, I think there's aspects of Miyako in all of it.
So Miyako backed me. Miyako and I met when we were 10 years old. We used to go to White Spot. I remember my mother used to get, she worked at the Villa Hotel as a server, and they'd give her passes to White Spot on 78th and Granville. We would take the bus there to go for fancy lunch or dinner with these free passes. But Miyako and I met when we were 10 years old, married 19, 20 years old. And then Miyako became a dental technician and was great at her craft of making porcelain and gold teeth. And as the business started to grow, she left that to run the office for us. But Miyako came home one day and said, I was working from 7 to midnight every day of the week, other than Saturday and Sunday, where I would come home at 5 o'clock. I would do 2 opens every weekend, and I was burning myself out. I got to a point where I was selling a house a day. Completely different world then, but Miyako came home and said, I found a space at Sperling and Hastings. You can open up your own company. I would have never done it. That's
She
not
started
me.
the own company.
She said, you're going to kill yourself. You have to have staff around you, and you have to grow. And at one time, we had 34% of the Burnaby market in our little office. So I would have never done it without Miyako. And Miyako is the one that gave one of the Bobisms, that a man that adheres to a position previously stated when times change is an idiot or a fool. And what it is we all take a position, and then interest rates change, GST, HST, tax consequences come in, something comes into the market, and we still want yesterday back, and we refuse to come off it. And that expanded to my philosophy of we're all computers. Information comes in, which validates the path I'm on, and I stay on that path, or new information comes in, and I have to alter that path. But most of us won't come off our decision that was made last year. And people can say, well, that's inconsistent, it's flippant. No, you're constantly bringing new information in.
I mean, the information's a really interesting one, because especially in today's world of AI and everything else, you've built the business, we've run this company on data, and you know where it's coming today. And I think you kind of really define this as data needs context, right? If you don't have any context to the data, it can't be intelligent. With intelligence, you can tell a story, and with storytelling, you can be compelling. And I think it's that art that I've watched you do throughout time, which is relationship manage, story tell, all while using sort of data and context.
The data, whether it's for here, or whether we're in Israel, or whether we're in Spain, or whether we're in Bellingham, you take the data, but then you have to put in the culture, and you have to put in the climate that you're in. I find if I can arrive with data and graphs, my client never wants to look at it. But if I arrive without it, then it's just opinion. And it has to be opinion based on fact. You know, there's one of the Bobisms, it's not mine, it's one of that I rely on, is Robert Moynihan, is everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but nobody's entitled to their own facts. And even if you go, just thought of it, if you go back to 1975, I came into the business. Uh, I didn't have grade 12, didn't understand the market, but I realized in my neighborhood in East Vancouver, there was 42.5 foot lots, 33-foot lots, but then there was something rare called 66-foot lots. And they could be subdivided if they weren't already two 33-foot lots. So I found every 66, I went down to the real estate board and looked through all of their map books, and I found every 66-foot lot from Rupert Street to Victoria Drive, from 22nd Avenue to McGill, virtually down to Wall Street to the water. And I wasn't into rejection, so I would send letters quarterly to everybody with a 66-foot lot. And I became the guy that controlled 66-foot lots for East Vancouver. And I would get up, I always got up early. I would get up at 6:30 in the morning, and I would go meet builders who were building 33-foot lot homes. Most of them heavy Italian and Croatian group. And I'd go for breakfast with them. And I just became that junior little nerd accountant guy. But I got to a point where I had signed in terms in my briefcase, and I would phone Vlado or Mr. Zlomazlich, and I would say, there's a 66-foot lot at 2nd and Renfrew. It's come on the market at $69,000. I think we should offer 72 and make sure we get it. And they go fill it in. And it's pretty hard for the rest of the market to compete with that knowledge base.
Yeah. So when you think about it's funny tying 50 years in this industry, and I'm going to tie it to space. So from your kitchen table to Hastings to Hornby to Wing Sang to now being the baker or the butcher above the store, as we've moved back to what is your home. If you think about all those times from Hastings to Hornby to Wing Sang to now, what do you remember about the market, the business, or yourself in those different kind of stages or epochs?
I think my growth is about every 5 years, not planned. I just, it's not that I get bored, but I know I have to fine tune it. And so something has always moved along. But when we opened on Hastings, it was, could we have 9 to 12 brokers? And then when we moved up on Hastings to 4701 East Hastings, the building was owned by Cliff Ronning, the hockey player's father. He had an antique store there, and I just felt we had to own the premises. So that was the first building. We bought it. I spent in 1988 $400,000 on interiors. I wanted it to look like a law firm. The architectural firm thought I was insane. When we started Rennie and Associates, I hired Simon, I can't think of his name. He invented a game called Smoker's Wild, and he did the logo, and he charged me $5,000 for it. He said 15 years later he would have charged me $500,000 for it. And I said, I want 3D coding on all my signs so that when a car drives down the block, my signs light up. When I started at United Realty, 1980, I measured the sign, and I saw that my name could be 5 1/4 or 5 1/8 inches high, and Bob Rennie would touch side to side, because I wanted to create a brand rather than always just promoting the company I worked for. Wouldn't work today. You need a brand behind you. You need substance behind you. You can't find your 15 minutes of fame just on your own. But moving it along, it's always been adding more substance. I mean, you were there when we were in Los Angeles, and 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and I said I I don't just want to grow, I want to grow up. And I want to be the company that financial institutions, REITs, second generation families, First Nations, last was China, would recommend. And you and Chris stood up and said, then you have to offer a bundle of services. And on a dime, we just turned and said, okay, let's offer a bundle of services.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I first joined in 2005, 2006. We were in the Hornby office. You had people stuffed under staircases
We had 16 people
in 1,100 square
I
feet.
don't think it was 1,100, but something like that. I know we took out the bathroom to give Sarah Hill an office.
And what actually became very interesting, and I mean, it's been a constant growth and surprise watching and learning from you, but that was when I first learned about what art meant to you. And the story that always sticks out with me is we were, uh, you, myself, and Tracy were flying to Toronto to work on Shangri-La Toronto with Ian Gillespie and West Bank. And when we were in Toronto, you said to Tracy and I said, I just bought something in New York. Do you guys want to fly over and check it out? So we flew from Toronto to New York, got there at midnight, stayed in the hotel, woke up the next morning. I'm pretty sure it was the meatpacking district we went down to. And I'm this is an accurate depiction of it, but we walk down an alley to an undescript building with a solid door. You knock on the door, and there was an armed guard there, our security, and a very pale looking woman with very black, dark, straight hair opened it.
Barbara Gladstone, one of the most famous art dealers in the world, she passed away about 2 years ago.
And yeah, so here we are, and we walk in, and you look around the corner and you go, I bought this. And I was standing in front of a 20 by 20 foot vat of oil on what looked like a kiddie pool with a full size screen across the hall. On that screen was a bald eagle trapped in power lines.
Oh, you got it. Yeah.
And when it flapped its wings, it would ripple the
There
oil.
was a rippler in the oil.
And then a gold brick.
I should have just bought the gold.
It was In God We Trust.
And it's In God We Trust, and there's a saying on it, I could look it up, that everything is not as we see it. And what happened is there was an edition of 3, the Cartier Foundation acquired one, and the bar gold was stolen. So I made a deal with the artist that it was 100 ounces of gold. I have the mold, and when I show it, I can pour the mold with the gold, and then I can sell the gold back. But then I should have spent the $500,000 on the gold.
To buy the brick itself.
To buy the brick itself. But it was.
So what got you, how do you define, like, what got you into art?
So
how did you come to be the, in a sense, collector that you are today?
I was brought up in East Vancouver in a very, very complicated household that had 24 hours a day stress. It's probably the reason I eat in restaurants today. And I know what the other side is like. And then my mother had rich relatives, and I would then see there was another side. And one of the relatives, they collected Canadian art, and I would stay at their house on weekends, and I would see how they talked about the art at dinner. And I would listen. And then Miyako was an artist. We'd go to art school on Saturdays. I would throw paint around, and Miyako would paint, and we'd go eat at Jackson's Beef House, which is, I think it's called Nuba now. It's downstairs across from Victory Square, the corner of Cambie and Hastings. But I became interested in the art side, but then knowing the side of town I came from, I knew how people looked at us. I knew how the rich side of my mom's family looked at us. And you saw that prejudice, you saw not being seen. Probably my sexuality, as I came out around 32 years old and dealt with my sexuality. I started to collect artists to raise their voices, and is it social justice or social jewelry? It's usually, one of my sayings, it's usually just social jewelry. So I started to feel that these voices had to be heard, and if museums were going to take on the responsibility, even Andy Warhol reported the news. He showed you Elizabeth Taylor, he showed you Marilyn Monroe, he showed you an electric chair, he showed you a car crash. So it was just reporting on the news. So I decided that I would start to put a collection together in social justice. And I started collecting Black artists in
How many years ago
America.
was this?
Oh, I started collecting. Um, I'm doing a talk tomorrow night. I bought a Norman Rockwell print in 1972 before I came into real estate. It was $375, and we couldn't afford the shipping. I had to borrow money from the neighbors. My parents never had a bank account. And then I started to refine it, and I became, we don't, it's not correct to use the word addicted, but passion's useless unless you turn it into a skill set.
Passion is useless unless you turn it into a skill set.
It's just passion. It's a hobby then. And it's entertaining, but true passion, if you nurture it, it has to become a skill set. And I turned the collection into a skill set. And I really think that the hours I was working and the stress that I placed on myself and the family, that my pressure relief valve is, you may go golfing, you may go on a hike, you go skiing. I can be in the middle of this meeting. If an auction house calls, I will stop the meeting and I will go out and I will acquire a piece of art, or I will talk to a curator or talk to a museum. And in 15 minutes, I totally decompressed because I went to another world. And I came back and I could take the craziest client, I could put up with anything, because I was so nurtured daily on my art world that it made it much easier to put up with the stresses of the business.
It's I've learned about this very, very small aspects of the art world. But the one thing that's always been very interesting to me is it's giving you the opportunity to sit on some pretty amazing boards in these rooms with people like, I think it was the Chicago Art Gallery that you were on the board of, where they're able to raise $500 million around the table, and everyone has an account that has way too many zeros. As you've watched that world, those boards with some of the most wealthy and powerful people around, how would you say, like, one, what do leaders of today need to understand? And then what does quiet leadership look like when no one's watching? Because I think that's a group that, and a space that is very different than what we know you for here, but it's well beyond the art world.
Our relationships are not all transactional, and those are your real relationships. Because I chose a silo of art that has a social conscience, it really layers over to our real estate. We need a social conscience. We have to understand affordability, we have to understand our market, we have to understand the street.
The thing I love the most is you're one of the most gracious people I know. And no, honestly, whether you're walking into a room, making sure you acknowledge people, say hello to them. When you're leaving a room, acknowledge and say hello. How does that tie to your last comment? What do we need to be thinking about more of in this world, where it seems like that level of just plain respect is going away? How do you maintain it with everything that you've dealt with? And
don't give into it. Don't give in to the social pressures of arrogance. But so my father, where I think I get a lot of my EQ from, my father was a beer truck driver, alcoholic, was socially acceptable to drive drunk all day, but he ran the press box for the Vancouver Canucks and the BC Lions. And he asked Michael J. Fox to leave a hockey game press box of the Vancouver Canucks because he swore in front of a woman. Very old school, but it taught me everybody was equal. And I don't care whether it's Jim Pattison, whether it's Prime Minister Mark Carney or Kelly. Everybody just wants to have just a little bit of respect in their day. And when I used to sell homes in East Vancouver, I would go into 7-foot wet, 7-foot high, wet floored basements that were suites. And I always took my shoes off because that's their home. Like, why would I not take my shoes off in their home? And yet, if I arrive at your home, I'll take my shoes off. My feet would get soaking wet. I get colds really easy. I would change my socks in the car. After a few years, I realized just carry extra. And it wasn't because they were covered in cat hair. It was because they were wet. And it costs nothing to be nice. You have nothing at all. But for some reason, we feel that we have to laud our success over someone else to show that you're better. And it's with houses. Like, as I got to a point of selling a house a day, I realized if I came into United Realty, first 100% house where I was working, if I came into United Realty and talked about how I got screwed over, a realtor beat me, I didn't get a listing, the sale fell through, everybody loved me. But if I came in and said I sold 4 houses last night, it was so uncomfortable for everybody because you're actually saying you can't do what I do. Yeah. So it really is, it might be one of the things you could ask me. I am monogamous when I'm with you. It's about you. It's not about me. And I think that's the mistake everybody makes is they sit down and they start talking about their new BMW, their new house, and there's someone selling their house because the daughter has cancer. Like, it's just leave yourself at the door.
Chris, Katie, and Steph, 3 awesome kids you have, and I know Chris incredibly well, and obviously know your daughters as well. What have you learned from them?
Well, if Steph was here, I would introduce her as my favorite daughter that is here at the time. If Katie's here, she's my favorite daughter that is here at the time. So I celebrated 50 years in real estate. I was in Toronto with Wes. We went to dinner, and halfway through dinner, I said, oh, this is my 50th anniversary. We have never made selling a house that day when the kids were small, buying the Wing Sang building and building a museum, doing the building on West First. We have never made any of those milestones important in our life. Like, there is no conversation at the antidotes. There's always what was humorous, but we do not stop, and anything transactional or monetary is not part of it. That's not what our relationship is about. So I pride myself that I still have a relationship with the kids, and they understand me, and I understand them. And Chris came through with the burden and the benefit of running the family. Somebody had to do it because I'm not the guy. and everybody signed off on it, and it all works. But they're all their own individuals. And I think as a parent, you're a parent, people watching this are parents, that our responsibility is a little bit is to just be a voyeur and let our children become who they are. I mean, our disappointment is Mieko and I always wanted a kid that worked for an airline so we could travel for free. That was our educational goal. But they're all individuals. They all understand each other and their differences and their idiosyncrasies. I have a complicated, but the least complicated personal life. Carrie Folks is instrumental and will always be part of my life. To call him an ex is the word. Wesley is instrumental. Mieko was instrumental. When on Christmas Day, it's my screensaver, in Mieko's kitchen, Wesley's cutting the turkey and Carrie's helping get food on the table. We're all together, and I think that shows the kids that we did deal with the complexities of our relationships. We didn't throw it out the window. We didn't go criticize each other. It's Miyako sort of, she won't remember, she told me, but sort of life's a movie and the wheel may break, but that doesn't erase everything that happened up to that moment. That, let's not throw that away. It's changed. But a lot of people, it breaks for good or bad. You go apart and then people throw the whole thing away, and we just don't.
I want to touch on market because we can't have coffee and talk without talking about the market. But I want to approach it from a little bit more of the philosophical side. Where certainly you've had 50 years in this industry, 50 years in this city, 50 years in real estate. You've seen everything, but I don't think you've seen what we're working through right now. So we can't draw on your past experiences, but if there were 2 or 3 learnings philosophically in business that you would be carrying forward, what would some of those be?
Every time. So the consistency is whether it was 21% interest rates in November of 1981, whether it was GST coming in, whether it was 2008, the mortgage meltdown that happened, COVID, this one, every one of them alters our path. And every one of them, you have to stand up and say, yesterday is gone. And we don't. We hate change. We refuse to admit that. Yesterday is gone. We are sitting with an iPhone and we want to be on a horse. Can't have it. It's gone. And this one, it is an earthquake. What's happening south of the border, globally, geopolitics, it is such a shift with AI mounted on top of it, which, my saying is my grandchildren won't know a world without AI. Mm-hmm. Just as your kids didn't know a world without this. I knew a world without this.
Yep.
But it's insane to say that your kids would go, how could you not have it? And now my grandchildren are going to live in a world with AI. But it's how do we adapt and take the information learned? We're in the middle of the storm right now.
Yep.
So it's very difficult. But one of the things that the data points that I use, and as we're talking, data has always been here. but the data point is, in 1971, we had 6.6 people working, mm-hmm. under 65 for every one person over 65. Within 10 years, we'll have 2.6 people working for every one person over 65 for every person under 65. 2.6 under 65 working. And that's with 365,000 a year immigration and no factoring in job displacement in AI. With socialized medicine, we will have 80% taxes if we stay on this path. So we're going to get back to immigration. We're going to get back to targeted immigration. We're going to build our country. But it probably won't happen till later in 27. And so I say that the market will stabilize. We'll start to find ourselves. We'll know where the bottom is and the base is by the second quarter of 2028. And I'm allowed to be wrong.
You are allowed to be wrong. It's so funny. I'm sitting here thinking, breakfast, lunches, meetings. I spend hours of time with people like yourself. Last year I checked it. I think there was 1,000 different actual interactions and meetings that were had with different people.
And no STI.
And yes. But let's go to today's world, which is like short form 20 seconds. So I'm going to go through some Bobisms. So let's talk about Bobisms first. What are they and what do they mean?
So last year, I was honored at the Board of Trade with the Ricks Award. Don Ricks endowed this, I think I was the 13th installation of the Ricks Award. But there's 900 people in the room, and I'm standing up there to talk to them. And I said, you don't know me, and you're giving me this award. And it gave me a chance to stop and pause. And I put together sayings that I use every day. and philosophies in our family, philosophies in the company, that I became comfortable with making up and repeating. So I had them made on this accordion. I think there's 38 or 40 of them. And I had 900 of them made, and I gave them to everybody in the room. And then since then, we've had more made. And every time I'm doing a talk or I'm doing something in public, I use them. Somebody came to the art gallery over in Chinatown, and one of the docents, somebody said sarcastically, you know, because I've ruined the price of housing for Canada.
Yeah.
Somebody said sarcastically, "What's it like working with Bob?" And this is an Emily Carr student said, "Oh, there's the people that know Bob, and there's the people that don't know Bob."
So well put.
But that's with everybody watching this. There's the people that know us and understand us and are forgiving, and there's the people that don't know us. And public perception and housing and the villainizing of the development industry in this city, it's been so politicized. Rather than being seen as a solution to housing and affordability, they've been seen as the devil. And you can't change that. So I thought by having the Bobisms with my insecurities, it just let people know a little bit of where I'm coming from.
So these, and I think you can quantify them as they come up, but to me they all fall into the buckets of art, politics, and real estate.
Yeah.
Just because I'm nice doesn't mean I'm stupid.
I think that we underestimate people that are nice or gracious or kind. We think they're stupid. Actually, I think it's lazy. Just be nice. It takes no effort. The effort it takes to be mean and arrogant is so taxing on you. But we do underestimate people that are kind. And yet people that are kind get to move around the earth a lot more and get accomplished what they need to accomplish.
With less friction.
With no friction.
I use this one in a couple talks, actually. Rich people can afford to wear sweatpants.
That came to fruition. We were marketing the Kingswood at 14th and Fur. It is an amazing project that the Seagulls did. It was so overbuilt, and it's like a Ghostbusters building, and it was so fancy. It was finished for 2 years, and they'd only sold one suite. And the brochure was the size of this table, and it had the little woman bringing the martini to the man leaning against the fireplace in a suit. And I said, "You don't understand it. That's how people think the rich live. That's not how they live. They can afford sweatpants. They get home and they're comfortable." So we reshot the whole thing as more family. But it's that we underestimate people when they show up at an open house based on the car they drive and the shoes they're wearing. But the richer you are, the more casual you can afford to be.
This next one I actually gives me the opportunity and career I have. The founders are the biggest detriment to the growth of a company because they want yesterday back.
And that one hurts because until Chris and then you guys really became vocal, I loved yesterday. It's the best. You've said before, and it's arrogant of me to repeat it, that you now have 82 people doing what I used to do myself. Because the world accepted that. We weren't scaled like this, so it's a huge exaggeration. But founders are trying to prove legacy, and so once you and Chris became vocal, and probably, you know, I'm 70 this year, so I was between 57, 58. I started to realize that legacy is the culture of the company. Legacy isn't necessarily the way I did everything with the pen and paper. It's changed. And I think that if founders had good psychiatrists, they would start to understand succession a lot earlier.
Size 4 hat, 44 pants, no brains, but lots of guts.
So probably Bobisms comes from this because my father, that's his saying, my father always, and in our Bobisms brochure, it attributes who said it. But my father always had these sayings, and people repeat them to this day to me. But this is small brain, all pants. And it was just one of his sayings, but it gave me the confidence as a kid to even start to create my own saying, because I really respected him for it.
We all survive on our similarities, but in the end, we will only be remembered for our differences.
Yeah, and, we're sitting here, we both speak English, we're drinking out of a cup. These are our similarities, but we end up only remembering the differences in each other. We only remember the idiosyncrasies, good or bad. That's what we're remembered for. We're not remembered for our sameness. Our sameness gets us to the table. Our sameness gets us in the club. But then it's uniqueness that allows you to stay there.
We don't mourn the relationship we lost. We mourn the relationship we imagined.
It's my favorite saying.
It's valid in so many parts of life.
But let's take our residential brokers. They lose a listing. They mourn and are upset of the way it was supposed to be. They were supposed to be the favorite. It was supposed to be signed up. They were supposed to get double the commission that most get. We mourn our imaginary relationship. The way it was is you didn't get the job. Learn from it and move on. And when we end a relationship in our life, rather than looking at the real reasons, we get all upset of the way it should have been. I should have been brought flowers every day. I should have had breakfast made for me every day. I should have had this. We're all upset about the way we wanted it to be. But the way it is, it was time to move on.
Couple more to go. I haven't heard this one in a while, but I very much remember the first time I heard it. I'm tired of pretending I'm stupid to make you feel comfortable.
That happened at Earl's restaurant just up the block. A businessman was being extremely rude at a table over my relationship with the Vancouver Art Gallery. And I stood up and I said, I am tired of pretending I'm stupid to make you feel comfortable. And I left the restaurant. We walked around the block. I went back and I apologized, paid the bill for everybody and left. And what it is we dumb ourselves down. We hear racist comments at the table. We hear rudeness towards Kelly, and we let it go by and pretend we're stupid. It didn't happen. And then as you get older in life, you go, no, I don't have to tolerate that. Because what if we just expect 50% of our integrity from other people at the table? They don't have to meet you where you are, but they can't offer zero. And so it's time to bring it up. I've only used that a few times in person, but I know exactly how it happened.
Also very relevant to today's world. 4% of the world are assholes, and they take up 96% of our time.
Look at every policy, everything we do. It's all to put up with the people that are going to take advantage of us. It's all to put up with the assholes in the room. And they take up so much of our time. But we have to start to understand the energy that the negative takes from you and pay attention to the 96% that's going right. But every policy is made up for the 4%. And I'm exaggerating. It's way higher.
This one is the most simple, it's the most impactful, it defines the culture of the company, and I can, over 20 years of knowing you, working with you, working for you, this one is the simplest but most important. I can't be me unless I let you be you.
And I don't know whether that came from dealing with my sexuality. I don't know quite where it came from, but we all want to be respected for our individuality and don't want to offer it to somebody else to respect them for their individuality. I mean, it's not as far as all lives matter and white supremacists are allowed to exist. But basically, you know, Sarah Hill, who's been with us probably 30 years, Sarah Hill joined our company 30 years ago because we accepted her sexuality as a lesbian. Could you imagine that conversation today? That will you allow me to be me? And I think there's diversity in the office. I mean, we used to, I don't know whether we do it anymore because I'm not involved as much, but when somebody was at the company less than a year, they'd stand up and talk to us. Well, some of the disclosures they made at those dinners were, oh my God, that's like, it's too much information. But they felt comfortable enough to be to be themselves. And I think it's really necessary. And how can we deal with a diversified public without a diversified office?
It's such a simple one. I use it so often in so many aspects. So, I mean, I thank you for all the Bobisms. I thank you for all of that. 50 years, turning 70 in 2 months. 3 years from now, 8 years from now, what does Bob's world look like?
Before I answer that, just to go back on, I can't be me unless I'll be. I was with my grandson the other day, and with Katie and Marco's parents, we were talking about he doesn't like to go on the monkey bars to the top. He's afraid. So I sat him down, and most grandparents would explain that you have to do it. I said, Haruki, I have never picked up a ball in my life. I've never been on a team in my life. I've never played a sport in my life. I'm okay. And I think that macho A type personality that we all insist on boys, or the stereotypical that we insist on girls, those are all gone. But moving it ahead, I have a deliberate role. They trust me. I get to bring the city together, create energy, and I think over the next 10 years, if there's a diplomatic role of helping sew the fabric of the city together with our business leaders, with community, that really interests me. Am I there yet that 60% of my life is non-transactional? I'm close. Mondays and Fridays, I don't want to do anything transactional. It's either art or friends or just catching up with business associates at lunch or breakfast. But there's nothing transactional to come out of it. And maybe my dream by 80 is, I think, the most successful human in the world has no telephone and no driver's license.
Oh, I haven't heard that one in a while. Talk about that actually, though. In today's world, no telephone, no driver's license, no email address.
Yeah.
What does that define for you?
When the Four Seasons was open, I had the same, my OCD had the same table every day at the Four Seasons. And somebody was there at 11 o'clock with their husband and said, let's sit there, to the server. And the server goes, no, that's Mr. Rennie's table. And his wife sat down. And his wife said, they told me it's Mr. Rennie's table. He said, no, I can get that table. And he said, the server, and they said, no. And she explained to him that I don't have social media. I don't have Facebook. I don't have LinkedIn. I came to the office one day and says, what's LinkedIn? I had no idea. I don't have LinkedIn. I have a Twitter and an Instagram account that are inactive because I want to protect the name. And she said, no, Bob's live Twitter. And I thought, oh, that's what it is you said you had 1,000 meetings last year. I have breakfast and lunch with somebody different every day. Evenings, I do very little business. So that is your live Twitter. And as long as I can stay curious, I think I'll live longer and live healthier. But I think it's something that we all give up. We stop being curious because we just get set in our ways and we know it can't be done and we know we don't like that. And I think it's really necessary. if I'm going to be valid to my grandchildren, that for the next 15 years, I stay curious and stay somewhat relevant.
Interesting. I was going to ask you, what do you want for the business moving forward? And I'll tie that to yourself because I know we've sometimes talked about the idea of being anonymous. And, you've spent 50 years getting attention for various reasons all over those
I
years.
did not.
Yeah. But, you once said, hey, I'd love to walk down the street one day, be standing by a Rennie sign, and someone say, who's that? Or what's that?
Yeah,
Not Bob Rennie, but Rennie. Like, we've always worked to how do we remove the individual from the business?
But you and Chris worked on that for the last 15 years. And it was a hard one at first. I used to say to Chris, it took me 35 years to fuck up this business. You're not going to make me change it in a day. We'd fight. But it is understanding that times have changed. And the hardest thing to do for a chef in a fancy restaurant is to scale intimacy. And so how does the company scale intimacy? By maintaining the culture and maybe leaving me as more of a diplomat and a figurehead that still underwrites that culture, and that the people watching this in the company still feel, no, he has his pulse on it. He's still involved. And I think it's necessary for the company. We'll go back to the economy. There's been many times that we go, now's the time to sell it or bail. But it is legacy for the family, and we really want to keep this going, but we have to keep it going with the Gregs of the world. If you look at Tracy McTavish with the company, you look at the people that have been close to the brand all the way through, it's all about them. It's about you. It's about Chris. It's about the whole crew that's putting this together, that said, oh, I'll get up at 6 a.m. because we like this sort of project. Nobody wants to be working at 6 o'clock in the morning, but everybody's here because, oh, it's a unique one that you don't do at most companies.
When I first started writing down some of your Bobisms, because you'd say things, I'm like, okay, I got to remember that one. Like and a lot of it was actually from a business point of view. I had to understand the things that mattered to you. Today we say our noble purpose is we exist to educate, inspire, and empower people. And, so many of these things tie together from what you've built, the history that's brought you here, the art, the politics, and all of it. And it's fun to be part of. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Someone said to me last night, I was in Palm Springs, I saw your sign. You're considerate real estate. I said, no, thoughtful real estate.
It is thoughtful real
so
estate.
they saw the word themselves.
Yeah.